finished. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. It's really exciting to be here. I've been traveling for a while, so you'll have to, maybe I'll jump a few slides or something, so you'll have to excuse any jet lag or any confusion. So a little bit about me. This is myself. I live in Sydney. This is my son and my wife. I found out last weekend I'm having another baby, which is really exciting. Yeah, thank you. And everyone tells you that when you have your second, this will be my second, they say, wow, you must have so much free time now. And I was like, yeah, free time with what? And so we're really excited about that. I actually used to be a customer of Atlassian. I used to administer all their tools. I was a software engineer, and I was a customer for about 4 years. And I kind of, to be honest with you, I kind of fell in love with Confluence, and I really wanted to work on the product. I saw how it transformed. I used to work for a large telecommunications company in Sydney, and saw how it transformed the way we work, and I said I have to work with this product, and so I joined Atlassian 5 years ago. Since then, that was the first release I worked on is Confluence 3.2. Is anyone here, just out of curiosity, on any version of Confluence older than 4.0? Is everyone above? Oh, wow. Okay. Scary. Good to hear. I also, I founded Team Calendars at Atlassian. Anyone who used Team Calendars? No, a few customers. Confluence Questions, anyone use that as well? A few. Okay, good to hear. I also spent 1 year in Atlassian doing integration across all the Atlassian tools. I was the product manager for that. So if you have any other questions today about integration or Jira or Stash, Bamboo, I may be able to answer that as well. I'm not an expert in them, but I might be able to answer some questions there as well. The last number I wanted to share with you is 2 weeks. Anyone want to guess what this number is?
Your vacation.
That would be nice.
Confluence 6.
Oh, wow. I would like that as well. No, 2 weeks is how long I've been living out of a suitcase for. So we've been traveling across Europe for the last 2 weeks, to a bit more than 2 weeks, meeting a lot of customers. And so this is a large part of the reason why I'm here today is I have something to share, but more importantly, I came here to listen. So after the talk or in the afternoon, I love to hear all your Confluence feedback. The big reason I'm here is to make a better product. So anything you can tell me to help make Confluence better, I would love to hear it. So today, I want to cover 3 quick things. The first one is some highlights of some recent updates to Confluence. I see most of you are on around Confluence 4. So a lot of this stuff will be new to a lot of you. We'll also spend some time at the end of the presentation talking about the Confluence Roadmap, give you an idea of where we're headed so you can plan your internal Confluence releases and see how it fits with our schedules. And throughout the presentation, I want to share, I think, some tips and tricks or things we have learned inside Atlassian about how we've tried to scale our culture. We're nearly 1,300 employees now. In the last 6 months, we've almost doubled. It's been a crazy amount of growth. And so we've been trying to understand how we can scale our culture inside Atlassian. So throughout the presentation, I'll share with you some tips of some things we've learned, maybe some things you can try in your organizations. It'll be interesting to see how they differ from German culture to Australian culture and all that. So I'd love to hear from you if you think there are any differences there as well. So I have one plug this talk that I'd like to give. Is anyone here using Confluence Data Center? No? Okay, so Data Center is an offering we released earlier this year. If you're running an instance that you would say is business critical to you and you don't want any downtime, this is our new clustered offering. So it gives you high availability, scalability, and it helps you perform at scale with more concurrent users. So you keep adding more nodes to Confluence and you can scale. So I'll leave the plug at that. All I'll say is if you're interested, please talk to someone from Seibert Media. I'm sure they can give you some more information about it. The pricing is on our website. You can learn more about it there. So check it out. It's for business critical Confluence instances for enterprise customers. That's why we built it. So Confluence. I wanted to start by thinking about how we see Confluence today. We see it as one place where your team can create, organize, and discuss work. Now, I've heard the word intranet a lot today. But lots of teams are doing this together and your whole company is doing this together. Eventually, I guess, Confluence evolves to be an intranet over some time. And we're excited to say that we've got nearly 10 million users. We're very close, so I can't wait to have our 10 million user party. But they range across a variety of organizations, everything from tech, different industries, from tech to medical to automotive. And so I wanted to share with you before we start today a very short story from one of our customers, HubSpot. HubSpot built a content marketing product there in the USA. And they have a very interesting culture, and they use Confluence a lot to foster their intranet and to foster their culture. So we'll watch this short video, and I'll talk about it in a second.
Hi, I'm Jim O'Neill. I'm the CIO of HubSpot, headquartered here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. HubSpot's mission is to make marketing something that people love. We do that through an all-in-one integrated software platform that includes email marketing, blogging, social media, web analytics, and anything that a modern marketer would need to do their job. We started using Confluence when we started HubSpot to allow us to collaborate across the entire company, everything from our sales, marketing, engineering, product management, support, to truly allow every voice at HubSpot to have an equal voice and really to crowdsource our content and how we run our business.
It's really where we keep all of our information. Information is really important here at HubSpot because we believe in being very transparent and being very analytical. So Confluence is where we put everything.
Centralized meeting notes, board meeting minutes, product management roadmap items.
We have a lot of conversations on Confluence. Often we'll poll the company to gauge opinion on a certain important issue.
Pretty much anything that we would need to do to create and run our business, we do in Confluence.
And it's really easy to use. It's easy to have conversations. It's easy to share structured information, produce things in an easy to read way.
Every HubSpotter can post their own ideas, their own metrics, as we're a very metrics-driven company. And then as that HubSpotter manages those metrics, publish them to the wiki, and get peer review and basically feedback from the entire company on how well they've done, or honestly, in some cases of experiments, how well they haven't done, and that's how we learn and we do better.
Really make sure that information flows freely and that everyone at the company has a voice at the table.
So for instance, a great use case at HubSpot was our CTO and co-founder this weekend posted an article asking for one piece of advice that a HubSpotter would give to every single new HubSpotter. Within 72 hours over the weekend, we had over 82 comments on that article with sage advice of what you should do to make your life at HubSpot better. Personally, I feel Confluence should be adopted day one. You're never too small to collaborate. It could be a company of 2 or 3 people. Any company of any size that's not collaborating in such a real-time fashion should strongly consider using Confluence. It's the best tool out there for it.
So that's HubSpot. The reason I share that story with you actually, because when they first told us the story of how they use Confluence, I think we got really excited because it really reflects what we call our product principles, which is why we're building Confluence. What guidance do we have when we make product roadmap decisions for what we're going to build and how we're going to build it. And you saw this a little bit in the video, and it comes through hopefully in some of your organizations, I would hope. We believe everyone should have a voice. All employees, for them to be engaged, need to be able to participate actively, share their concerns, also their successes and their failures. And so a lot of how we build a product is oriented around this. We believe teams work better when they collaborate, and collaboration is in our DNA. We have to collaborate to achieve something together. And so collaboration is a big part of the product and the features that we build. And ultimately, we want somewhere where work gets done. There are a lot of collaboration tools out there that have discussions, but don't really help you complete a task or close the loop on a decision or a discussion. So that's one of the principles that we have. So these are our 3 principles. And the reason I share this with you before jumping onto the roadmap, because it pretty much reflects our roadmap in many ways. So we kind of group our features into 3 big categories. Everyone having a voice is about creating content. We want you to be able to create any type of content in Confluence. Collaboration is around discussing and refining, and we're all supposed to be continuously improving in our jobs every day. And so a lot of features we build there are fit under that category. And lastly, we want you to take action with the work that you do. We want you to make decisions, move on to the next project, complete a task. We just don't want you to chat and not actually achieve anything. So when you put all this together, we call this the collaboration cycle. This is how teams work, this is how people work, right? Someone creates something, we discuss it, and then we make a decision. And our goal really is to help you do this loop as quickly as possible and as rich as possible in your teams, so you can achieve your work and get work done. So what I want to do is actually walk through each of these areas and what we've done in the roadmap recently, some new things, some older things, and also I'll highlight some tips or culture things that we've learned at Atlassian in each of these sections. So we'll start with create. And many of you know Confluence is a place where you can create a lot of things, lots of different types of content, and they all group together into one place. When I ask customers, why did you buy Confluence? One of the big reasons they always say, the word centralization keeps coming up, which is we want one place for a team or a project to go access all their documentation. So when a new team member comes in or you're away for a week, you can catch up on what the team has done by going to your one central place. So I want to choose some things that you create in those meetings, so in those spaces, and I will start off with meetings, right? So I don't think I need to talk too much about this. I saw a little giggle. We've done a little bit of research around meetings. There's a website we have with some statistics around meetings. But most meetings are painful. There's no agenda. Action items aren't really clear. It's always frustrating walking out of a 1-hour meeting and you're like, what did we do? Like, we could have just talked about this for 5 minutes, right? And so with Confluence, we're trying to make this a little bit easier and help you stay focused. Anyone here use Confluence for meeting notes? A few, half, okay. Yeah, we give you an instant structure when you use the meetings feature. You can modify this yourself for a team or a project. When you mention your attendees, they get notified so they can be aware that you've created an agenda for the meeting. So less emails back and forth. You outline your agenda. When you're in the meeting, you can track and assign action items, something which a lot of people, it's very hard to leave a meeting and not have some clear actions, but it's funny when you have a little heading on a page that says, what are our actions? Everyone feels like they have to fill it out. And it kind of forces the meeting to stay focused on reaching an outcome. So my first tip around running effective meetings, this is something we actually tell any new starter that starts at Atlassian. We sit down with them, they go through what we call a boot camp. And we sit down with them and we tell them a whole bunch of things. One of the things we talk about is meetings and meeting culture. And so here I went through the guide. We have a handbook. So I picked three things that we talk about in the guide for the meetings that resonated with me. The first one is around status meetings. So who here has project status meetings? You know, when you get around a table, what's the status of the project? Are we at risk, etc. We try to avoid status meetings. It's very hard. Sometimes you have to have them. But our first goal is to try to avoid status meetings. Instead, we say, let's put the status of the project or the tasks on a page, and we share the page around and see if we can do this in everyone's own time. So instead of having to pull everyone's time 1 hour and going to a meeting room, let's try and do this by putting it on a page and having the status meeting together. And the advantages here is that you have something that's referenced for the future. People that aren't in the meeting can be aware of what's going on. And if you have questions, anyone can see the questions. So you can answer them, or other people across the organization can contribute. The next type of meeting you kind of have is the decision meetings. And this tip actually probably works best for me. This is something that I really like, is if you have a meeting and you need to make a decision, make the meeting title in your Outlook or your Google Calendar a question. And it's fascinating when you do that and you're in the meeting and you're talking about it, people feel like all the discussion has to revolve answering that question. So they're always coming back to this question. They're saying, did we answer the question? You know, are we on the right track? Someone told me about this tip. We didn't have this handbook before I started. Someone told me about this tip last year, and I've been using it for a long time. And it really helps focus the meeting. And when you kind of do that, when you have this question you need to answer, you can then look at all the attendees in the meeting and say, well, does this person contribute to reaching this answer, or is this person just someone who can be informed? I don't know how many meetings you've been in where there's 6 people in a room and 4 don't say a thing. And you're like, wow, the company's paying a lot of money for this. Like, so they're people that need to know the outcome of the meeting, but they just don't necessarily contribute. But when you have the question phrased, it makes it much easier to say, can you help answering this question? I know you can't. Well, we'll let you know afterwards. We'll write the meeting notes, and you can find out afterwards. So Confluence meetings, if you haven't tried them, please give them a go. I hope they help you have more effective meetings, stay on the same page, and make the right decisions. We've talked about decisions, and in Confluence as well, one thing people use it a lot for is decisions and some customers call them decision registers. Anyone use decision registers in Confluence? Not really. Okay, good. This is new. And so it's kind of like managing a register of decisions for a particular project. You have a project, you need to make some decisions. Someone new joins and they say, why is this thing like this? And, oh yeah, we talked about it once and I can't remember. But it's for an important reason. It's important. And so we're trying to solve this problem. So in Confluence, you can create decisions. When you create a decision, you say who, what, and when you need to make the decision by. It's pretty simple. And what this does is it creates a page and lets you add extra context. So all decisions probably have some options you need to consider. And when you have options you need to consider, you need to have some discussion, talk about the pros and cons, display the different options. You can embed videos, images, spreadsheets, whatever it is you need to do to help you make a better decision. That's why we've built it on top of a page. After that, you have some discussion, reach some consensus, and you close the loop. Once you do that, you can mark the decision as complete, and Confluence automatically organizes all your decisions into one place. So let's just say you have a space for a project. You can go there and you can see all the decisions for that project, see which ones are open, which ones need to be closed, who's responsible for the decision so you can follow up and make sure they're getting the work done. I actually wrote a decision page 2 days ago. We're talking about the next release of Confluence 5.8, and we needed to make a decision if we're going to delay the release or not, depending on some features. So I wrote a decision page up. I am not even in the Sydney office. All my team is in Sydney. I shared it with a team. People from all across the team started commenting and giving their ideas, how we can make the release deadline or if we should push the release date out. I had people from other teams suggest different ideas on how we could achieve our goals. And I've never talked to these people in my life. They're across the other side of the ocean, and I'm like, it was really nice to see that other people are trying to contribute and share their knowledge. So, decisions, if you haven't tried them in Confluence, try them with your team. It's really simple, it's not a lot of work. It'll take you 2 minutes to create a decision page. But try it once or twice and see how it changes your team, if it reduces your meetings, or if it helps your meetings stay focused as well. Hopefully they help you reach consensus, and once you have this decision, you can reference it forever. So someone new joining your project or your organization, you can point them to that page and say, this is why this happened. A great way for someone to learn about your organization or your project without having to have lots of meetings and talking to people. Next thing I want to talk about is email. You know how you have this problem where there's an email went out and, someone says to you, oh, did you see the email? And you're like, the email? Which email are you talking about? And you think you've missed out on something that's important, but maybe you went on the list, so now you need to find out who sent the email so you can get on it. Now, email is good. I don't think email is bad. I'm not saying email is bad, but we do abuse email for everything. I'm guilty of this as well. Email is just your initial reaction. I'll just get in, I'll send the email. It'll be easier. So at Atlassian, we've been trying to stay away from emails, especially for announcements. So I want to just choose announcements as an example. So let's just say a manager has an announcement to share with a team about a release being delayed or an acquisition or a project coming up. They'll write an email, send it out to all employees. First problem, one guy replies and no one else is on the list. They just hit reply. And so the manager's like, oh, I need to CC everyone. So they put everyone back in the list and they reply all, right? And then you get this notification storm where everyone's now replying all. And then you get the silly reply all. So how frustrating is it when someone replies all and says, okay. You're like, thanks. And someone replies and says, yes. And you're like, oh, can we stop with emails? That happens, right? And then you get a new person that joins your team or project. They've got no idea that this conversation's going on because they're not in this email loop, which is maybe a good thing because they're getting less email. But they're feeling left out. They have no access to this information. And then a few months down the track, you've trying to find this email where you made a decision about something, but you can't find it. You want to write a project plan and reference this decision, but who knows where it is. And in general, you can't actually work out if people are engaged with your email. You don't know if people are even listening on the other side. You can send an announcement and no employees reply to you. Or a lot of big companies, I apologize if this is you, the CEO will send an email, but you can't reply to him or her afterwards. You're like, well, what was the point of that? And so we've been trying to use Confluence Blogs to change this. And it's interesting to see a lot of customers doing this as well. And so instead, you'd write a blog post and you'll say, this is my announcement. or this is what's happening with the team. People will go and read it. You share it with them, they'll read it. You can track engagement. If they like it, if they don't like it, you can start to have a conversation around the email. Sorry, the blog post, not the email. I think the second thing here is pretty important. Is people can opt in or choose to update, right? So they don't have to be on this giant email thread. If it's important to them, they decide, right? You hire them because they're smart, right? So they can choose if it's important to them or not. They opt in, and they will get notified of the updates. Whoever is not interested can just stay out of the conversation. You get a new member that comes in, you can always reference them to past announcements, past knowledge base, whatever it is that you're writing. It's much easier to do that way. And you can reference it in future documents. I had a new starter start in my team last week, in the product management team. I wrote a blog post about my experiences at Summit last year, which is our yearly conference. And I said, hey, go read this and tell me what you think. What did you learn from it? And I don't have to dig up any old emails. They can comment on it and still keep a discussion going. That was 1 year ago, and still engage with that. And ultimately, you're creating this more collaborative, open culture where people can share information and they don't have to be worried that they weren't in an email or have to deal with a crazy amount of email storms. So I like to think of this as we're hopefully trying to help large companies feel like small teams. So I mentioned to you earlier, I was a customer. One of the things I saw Confluence do in my organization was that we were 7,000 employees. It felt like you knew the person that was in another department in a different country. It completely changed that culture. At Atlassian, our CEOs are very big on blogging instead of emailing. So all our founder updates, I had to screen this one to make sure there was nothing sensitive. Our CEOs and founders, they blog on a monthly basis, weekly basis sometimes, on new announcements for the team and the organization. People in the organization can reply direct to the CEO. And people can comment and have a discussion about the topics discussed there. So my second tip around blogging is the other thing we do is we ask all new members of our teams to blog. So they write a welcome blog post. Does anyone here try welcome blog posts in their organization? Okay. Oh, a few. 2, right. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. We actually got this tip from one of our customers that was using it. So every new employee when they start, what you typically do is you walk them around the office and you say, hi, meet Joe, this is Joe, Joe does this, okay, cool. And then you walk to the person sitting next to him and say, hi, meet Joe. Yeah, I know, I just heard Joe was right there. And then you walk to the person again, and you do this over and over again. But when you're scaling, like a lot of you are 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 employees, and you're working on large projects, large teams, this is really ineffective. And it becomes kind of annoying. If you're the person sitting there like, great, someone new started today, I have to wait in my seat till they come past. So what we try and do is every new starter, write a blog post about yourself. And we have these all over Atlassian. Every new starter that starts, they write the blog post and they share it with their team. It's a much better way of scaling introductions without having to walk up to every single person. Or if you work in a distributed team across the ocean, this is a much more effective way of doing it. So I picked one blog post of one of our engineers who started 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. His name's Isaac. I thought he had a good blog post. And I thought, well, what made his blog post so good? Well, he introduced himself. He put a funny photo of himself so people were engaged. It kind of, you got to know that person a little bit better. He put a picture. He says where he's from. He even put a little map in to say, I'm from here and I traveled to here. And he talks about his hobbies. I didn't know Isaac till I read this blog post, but he builds these robotic cars for fun. So it's pretty cool. So I was like, hey, I want to know this guy. I wonder if he can build me a car. That would be very nice. You don't really want to tell your life story. You see blog posts that are just these long life stories, or people feel like they need to post their resumes, but you just hired them because the resume must have been good. So you kind of want to encourage people just to get personal. We really want you to feel like a small team. So this may be something you want to try in your team for the next person that starts in your team. Instead of walking around the room, ask them to write a blog post and share it with the rest of the organization. So I gave you an example of a good blog post, but it's not exact science. This is one of our graduates that started last year. He writes a blog post, his first day. He says, my blog post. Almost 200 people liked the blog post, and a crazy amount of comments. it's still going. So you look at this and you go, there's two ways you can look at this. You can look at this and say, what a waste of company time and resources. How much time did they spend on this post? Now, maybe there's some true element to that. But it was amazing to see what this blog post did to the company, right? So we are in 7 geographic locations, so with over 1,300 employees, something like that. We talk about this blog on a regular basis with people you've never met before. It's become this conversation point. Hey, remember that new guy that read that blog post? It's kind of added this little part to our culture as something that was entertaining and funny, and you're like, why did this become so popular in the organization? People then go home from work and they share with their friends, hey, something funny happened at work, let me tell you what happened. And someone wrote this blog post, blah, 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 and I don't know how we always finish with MySpace. It doesn't make sense. But it goes a long way to helping build a fun culture that people want to work in. People don't want to work in a dull environment. They want to work in a fun culture. So it's very entertaining. There's actually a few other examples of this. Hopefully you don't think we waste too much time at work. But something definitely to try. So if you haven't tried blogging in Confluence, I encourage you to try it. Hopefully it helps you engage employees as well as the new people in your team and reduce the amount of email you send through and the amount of knowledge you store in email when other people could be benefiting that you may not have included in that conversation thread. So speaking of email, the other thing people use email for a lot of, I see, is questions. And how many times has this happened to people? Someone will email all staff, or they'll email a whole department or a large team, and they'll ask a question like, where do I put in my leave? Or and the funny thing is they'll always start with, I don't know if they do this in Germany, they always start with, sorry about the spam, but blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, you're not really sorry about the spam. You still want to send the email. Now, it's not really their fault. In reality, they kind of they need their question answered. They just don't know where or who to ask. So they shoot the question to as many people as possible, hoping for the best answer. And this is why, one of the reasons we built Confluence Questions. But this is one of the things we encourage all employees at Atlassian. If someone asks you a question and you know the answer, you almost would say, could you just put that in a Confluence question and I'll answer it for you there? Because chances are you're probably going to get asked the same question a month, a week, or a year or two later. This happens all the time. So Susan is asked the question, where does she find her vacation leave balance, right? She started, she's new, she wants to ask that question. Justice replies and he links to the page with some details. Two interesting things about this conversation. This is inside Atlassian. Susan is in the Sydney team. Justice is working in Vietnam in Saigon. Neither of them work for HR, and they've solved the problem themselves. Now we get statistics inside Atlassian of how many people view this question, and hundreds and hundreds of employees view this question all the time. So they're getting their question answered without having to ask people or send emails to all the staff. This one hit me the other day. I came into the Sydney office on the weekend, and I actually didn't know how to turn off the alarm because I never work on the weekend, right? And the alarm started going off, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And I thought of running away and just leaving the alarm, and I was like, that's not a good idea. So I pulled out my phone, and I searched in Confluence, alarm, Sydney, and this came up, the first result. And someone asked the question, and someone's posted an answer with a photo on how to actually do it. The interesting thing, I talked to Petro, who asked the question. He's in the Sydney team. I said, oh, I found your question really helpful, thanks. Why did you create it? He's like, I came in the office on the weekend and the alarm went off and I didn't know what to do. So same question answered. The awesome thing about everyone answering these questions is you start to build this knowledge, right, of who in your organization knows what about what topics. And it's really handy to identify the key people within your team or your project. Something we did recently is, this was our most requested feature for Confluence Questions, especially by our enterprise customers, was to be able to ask a question and restrict it to a department or part of your organization. So you may have some contractors working in your organization that you don't want them to see the question, or you want to ask a question to the sales team that's a bit sensitive with the finances or HR or legal teams. And so you can now restrict questions by departments or teams or projects. So that was new, done recently as well. So Confluence Questions, if you haven't tried them, I encourage you to give it a try. We found it completely helps a large company feel like a small team. We move much quicker. things operate much more efficiently with Confluence questions. So the next thing you can create is roadmaps. Anyone here played with the Confluence Roadmap plan? 2 of you? Okay. So this one we did recently. A lot of customers seem to like this as well. I'll show you how it works. In Confluence, we see a lot of customers using it for projects. And now you can embed roadmap plans inside the page. Now these are high-level roadmaps. These are not Microsoft project Gantt charts. You can simply drag and drop these bars to communicate your themes and the different projects that you have. And the whole idea is to give your stakeholders or your team or your management a high-level view of what's coming. We're not going to build a detailed project management solution. We saw a lot of customers manually creating charts that look like this in PowerPoint and Keynote and drawing programs, and this was just trying to make that a whole lot easier. You can put these markers for things that are due or projects or events that you might have, and you can embed them into pages. So that's the roadmap planning. Not only can you do that, but the other thing you can do is dive deep for detail. So each one of these bars, you can link them to a Confluence page or create a page. So let's just say you have a project plan, you want to link to it, you can just link to it, or you know, some more details about whatever it is. So here's an example of one where you've got your project and the deliverable that's due, and there's the requirements for that deliverable. So the requirements planning feature is in the the roadmap planning feature is in the latest version of Confluence as well as in the last release. So yeah, if you haven't tried it, please give it a go. Simple, lightweight. If you're using Confluence for little projects, a lot of people love to use this as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can create. I've just covered a few of the highlights and some of the new things that we've done recently in Confluence. What about discussion and refining discussion inside Confluence? So we already have a few things, and I noticed they were talked about earlier, that help you do this today. So you've got shares. You can share a page or a project plan or requirements with someone and ask them to come in and review it. Or you can mention people. So you can bring them into the conversation and ask them to do something. And this is really handy for engaging individuals and asking them to do one thing. But what about engaging at a company scale? How do you have discussion at 1,000+ kind of scale? And a large part of this, I don't think this is rocket science here, but a large part of this is listening. So I want to share with you a tip, which is a short story of what happened at Atlassian a few months ago. This is our founder and CEO, Scott. He asked a question to the whole company, and every 2 years they do this exercise called a painted picture, which is if we were to paint a picture of what our company looks like in 2 years, what does that look like? But this time they tried something different where they said, hey, we want you, every employee, to paint this picture. And so he asked this question and says, dream big. Assume we have all the money in the world. Assume we can do anything possible. Dream big. What do you want the company to look like in 2 years' time? Now, typically what happens in other organizations, or how I've seen this happen, is the CEO will elect some high performers and will work with them directly, and that's how the company's vision is formed. In fact, I think Scott, when he posted this post, he said to me, I'm kind of worried we'll get some really dumb answers. And he said, but I keep coming back to, if our hiring process is correct and we're hiring the right people, then we should be okay. What followed actually was pretty amazing. We had nearly 200 answers from people across the world, but over 1,000 employees engaged with voting and deciding which projects they would love to tackle in the next 2 years, or what things they would love Atlassian to do in the next 2 years. This was posted a few months ago, and believe it or not, it's still very active today. New people starting in are still coming in and commenting and contributing to this, as well as new ideas are always still coming in. And so they picked the top 20, and they're trying to see what they can do about the top 20. But an amazing way to have a discussion with your whole organization without having for it to be one-way communication, which is what often happens. So that's feedback from your company. How to get feedback from your company, but how about getting feedback from your team? In the last release of Confluence, we spent a lot of time on inline comments, and we're calling this the new feedback loop. So teams need to get feedback to improve, and we've spent a lot of time trying to make it easier to get feedback on your work. So has anyone played with inline comments yet in Confluence? A few of you? Okay, so this is in the latest version. We just released it a few months ago. You can now highlight any text inside your project plans or requirements documents or whatever it is that you're talking about, and leave a contextual comment that's referencing that specific text. And so you're actually directing your feedback about a specific item in the document. Now these comments come with all the Confluence social features, so you can mention people to bring them into the conversation, and they will get notified and they can join the conversation. When the person comes in to visit the page, they see these yellow highlighting and they know there's reviews or things they need to do to respond to this feedback. So this is Sven. He opens up Ken's comment and he gives him some feedback. Now, you can do rich text and formatting, lists and numbering in the comments. You can link as well using the square brackets that most of you are probably familiar with. You can even paste images in those comments. We're probably the only product in the market that lets you have that rich level of commenting to help you be more expressive with your feedback. And it's also got all the Confluence social features. So Ken wants to know if in this website we should mention that we'll have beer at this event. And so you can like those things as well to show that you like someone's idea. So that's inline comments. They're available today. I have the privilege of speaking to a lot of customers, and this is definitely one feature I think we did not anticipate this much use. So it's being used an incredible amount, and we have a lot of actually feature requests from a lot of customers to make it even better. So if you are using it today, I'd love to learn more.
Does this feature as well work with pictures?
Funny you should say that.
No, with pictures. So I mean, I have a screen or something,
yeah.
or an advertising, and it's mark, I don't know, just change the head or something like that. So.
I bought it.
You what?
I bought the question.
Oh, you did? Wait 30 seconds. So the next question we get asked is around, I have inline comments on pages, but you also have the page level comments. What do I tell my users what to do and when to do what? We think both serve a very good purpose. This is a research paper that one of our engineers produced inside Atlassian. A lot of inline comments, and they're great for giving specific feedback about specific types, parts of the document, right? But in many cases, you need to give general feedback. So, there are a whole bunch of comments at the bottom of the page that relate to the document as a whole. Now, you can't do this with Word or Google Docs. You can't give a general feedback about the document. What you have to do is put it in an email and then write your feedback in the email as well, or find some text to highlight which is not really the correct text and leave your comment that way as well. So we see both inline comments and page level comments trying to help you get that balance of having a holistic feedback from your customers. So to that gentleman's question, we've got inline comments on text, but also in the last release we have inline comments on files and images. And so we've been working pretty hard at that one. So here you've got a presentation. This could be a PDF, PPT, Excel, picture, image, a PowerPoint, and you get the preview inside Confluence. And what we have now in the latest version is a full screen view, a previewer. That, I don't know if you remember, the old one was quite small and restrictive. This is full view. It's got zooming and panning and all that kind of stuff. And when you scroll through, it's just a preview of the PDF or PowerPoint or Excel file, whatever it is you're doing. Now at the bottom here, you have the ability to drag a pin, these little pins here. All you've got to do is simply drag them and drop them wherever you like, and you can start to leave feedback around any type of document. So whether it be an image, a PowerPoint, Excel document, whatever it is, you can upload that. By the way, these are the file types we support as well for server. For cloud, we support much more for cloud. Martin, you always have a question.
We were talking about the amount of file types, and you said you support more on cloud.
Yes.
Just in last sentence. Can I please have people raise your hand if you're using one product in the cloud, like Jira in the cloud or Atlassian in the cloud? So I see one hand, and this is a Atlassian expert. Okay, I see a second hand. Okay. Yeah. So who's using server products?
I knew where this was going. I knew where this is going. Yeah. So.
I mean, that just wasn't a question.
So So this is the files we support today. If you there's more files you want and specific file types you want in server, please let me know. The reason we don't support all the files in server and cloud is purely performance and scaling. So some file types require a lot of computing for us to read it and index it. Like Photoshop files, we can read all the layers and all those kinds of things, but it gets quite complex. So we support a little bit more for cloud, but I think we'll add more to server. Where was I? File comments, yes, they're very good. Check them out. I've been using them to review the designs that the team's doing in Sydney. Again, they do the rich text, all that kind of stuff as well. So this is Ken leaving his comment. Oh yeah, here's the example we were saying earlier. So, which is if there's 20 comments, you can scroll through all 20 and it jumps to the right spot of all that. So when you view the page, you can now see the number of comments that are on the page, so you know there is discussion happening on this file. As well, you get the notifications, so you have both available there to you. So file collaboration is available again in the last release of Confluence. One of the features I think that's used way more than we expected as well. So please check that out. So we've talked about discussing and refining and creating. The last thing I want to talk about is taking action and making sure you're getting work done. So Confluence has a lot of things today that help you take action. You have tasks on pages. I showed you an example of decisions trying to help you close the loop. We have questions. You can mark questions as official or as resolved or accepted, which is this question is the correct answer. For some organizations, for some types of questions, you want to be able to decide the final the correct answer. What about comments? So this is the latest thing that we've done. So not only can you close the loop on all those things, you can also close the discussion around comments. So we'll take a look at that very quickly. This is the discussion we had earlier. You can now resolve threads of comments, and all the conversation around that topic will get resolved. And all the comments are still available, just like the page history. All the comment history is still available. There's no limit for the amount of comments that we store. You can see who made the comment. You can see the replies, if you'd like to see the replies. Who resolved it, which is actually, we realize is so important, which is who's the one that made the decision that this feedback is now addressed. And you can also reopen it, because sometimes you made the wrong decision and you need to reopen the discussion again, or you've made a mistake. So that's for pages. I guess the same thing applies for files. So we've been trying to keep the experience the same and consistent between both features. So Ken has asked Sven to update the presentation. Sven replies. He then resolves his comment. And because we automatically version all the files for him, he hits upload. You can upload a new file, selects the file. You can put some change comment here, which is like, what did you change? And Ken gets notified. And all the file history is kept there as well.
That means that I can now have different file names and you'll respect that?
Correct. Oh. Yeah. So maybe if you're not aware of what Martin's talking about, so previously you had to upload a file with the exact same file name for us to version it for you. So now you can just upload any file and we'll version that for you. I should also point out, which is not obvious in this demo, which is we store comments per version. So a lot of customers were really specific about that requirement, which means, if you haven't closed the discussion on some things, you can upload a new version, have a discussion about the new version, but still come back to the old version and view the old comments version as well. So they're very specific to the version.
So how do you map the files? Like if they're different things?
We just do that for you. yeah, we store them together. So we keep the first file name of the original file, and we just do that. Now you can rename the file if you like as well.
But that only works from this UI, right? From the preview.
Correct. Yes, correct. Yeah, we're trying to consolidate all the file uploads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to consolidate.
Okay, I thought if you're just dragging it to the browser, then there will be 2 uploads.
Yeah, no.
Maybe
your last question, mister.
I'll say
What do you got?
You don't support rights management for these type of inline comments. Is that true? Or
sorry, what was support?
Permissions.
Oh, permissions. No, so comments respect the space level permissions for comments. So depending on what you've done in your space, it's respected for pages and files.
So there's nothing like changing visibility, like after publishing the document to remove all the comments?
No, so that is one of the feedback requests we've had, which is when I publish resolve all, or basically I've now finalized clear. That's something we'll probably do in the short term, definitely. Yeah. You guys excited about this? Is this something? Yes, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Right, awesome. Good to hear. So a lot of stuff that helps you get work done in Confluence. I hope I've given you an idea of how we're thinking about the product, what we've just done recently to help you in each of these areas. A little bit about roadmap updates. Martin made it sound like I'm going to tell you everything. I can't tell you everything. In fact, he was a bit disappointed when he saw what the slide. He was like, "Come on, we need more specifics." So let me share some updates with you. Everything I just showed you just then is all available today. So Confluence Data Center, questions, inline comments, etc. That's all available today. Latest version of Confluence. Just upgrade, chat to someone in Seibert Media, and I'm sure they can give you a demo, or chat to me. I can give you more details about that. Coming soon, the next version of Confluence will be Confluence 5.8. We hope to have that in about 2 to 3 months period. So if you're trying to plan an upgrade cycle, that's roughly when we're thinking. It's going to have some table improvements. It's going to be a fairly minor release. So we're going to look at automatic row numbering of tables. For long tables, we'll try and, the header row, we'll try and keep that. So when you scroll down a long table, the header row keeps. We're going to make some selection improvements and cut, copy, paste table columns, which you can't do today. So we're working on that as well. You've run out of your quota, sorry. Yes?
Jump in. So when is the day where we can use the parallel editing?
I'll get to that in a sec. The next thing we're doing is we're making some improvements on files. So we're looking at doing a full screen presentation mode, which will probably include the pages feature you mentioned, so you can jump between pages rather than scrolling.
So that's a different mode.
You'll have a button which is present, but to do that we have to solve the paging problem. So you'll probably get both there as well. Inline comments, some of the improvements you already asked for are coming. We've been just amazed at how much this feature is being used. And there's a few new things as well to make them a little bit better that I'll leave you with some surprises. They're not big surprises, they're little surprises. A little bit later, what do I mean by that? I mean, maybe the end of the year, maybe early next year. I would love for a lot of this stuff to come before Christmas. It'd be a lovely Christmas present, but we'll see. A big thing we're doing right now is performance. So we have a fairly significant part of the Confluence team working on performance. The number one focus of theirs is page load performance. So making your pages load faster. That's the number one focus. You may see some of the performance improvements appear in the small releases prior to a big release. So we may get some in Confluence 5.8, but we'll keep you informed in the release notes. We have commenced work on a native mobile application for Confluence. I think someone was asking about that earlier. iOS first. I'm sorry if you use Windows or Android.
Will that be an extra product or within the license?
No, yeah, within the license, correct. Yeah.
Can you tell us something about merging the documentation theme with a new results theme?
Yes, I can tell you that we still haven't done it, as you know. I would say it will definitely come towards the end of the year or early next year if we do. We will make sure in the next release of Confluence, if we've committed to it, we will be very clear when it's coming. And I should be very clear on that, is that we will migrate your themes across. There's a few exceptions, but I can chat to you afterwards about that.
Yeah.
We'll migrate as well. So if you are creating new spaces, please use the default theme, as we will slowly move off the documentation theme. I'm happy to chat to you why later, but we will make sure the features that are in the documentation theme are in parity with the default theme. So if any of you are using that. Native Mobile, we are looking at revamping the dashboard. So if you customize your dashboard, I'd love to hear from you what you put in it. Our primary focus here is going to be to help you get to the work that you're working on faster. Our number one feedback is, I worked on that page last week, but I can't remember what it was called. So this is so we're going to optimize that to help you get to your work. So that's how we're thinking about it. If you've got some dashboard feedback, please let me know. Perfect timing. I'm doing the research for that now. So the last thing we have in our roadmap and significant resources under is our editing experience. Continue to make it more reliable. The inline comments that you saw, they appear when you view the page. We're working on getting them to appear also while you edit the page, so that it's seamless when you switch modes. So that's it from me. I hope that gives you an insight into the roadmap and things that we're working on. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.